got a little secret everybody wanna hear.
I love your style, very retro.
Thank you.
I want to know if it's something that's because you want to be coherent with your music, or it's because
It's both.
you absolutely love it and it fits with you.
I love it. I kind of just like all old things, you know, so I feel like it really works with the music, but it's also just because I don't know, I like things from the past.
You know that you look like Natalie Wood.
Really? Thank you.
And Ali McGraw.
Thank you. I've gotten those two a lot before.
Pretty, right?
Shit. I thought that was the first one.
Natalie Wood. Ali McGraw I've only gotten once. So my style is very retro, but always with something current. I like you know, old silhouettes, but new fabrics and new shapes, and yeah, like for example today this is kind of a retro type of shape that I'm wearing. I'm wearing a pencil skirt, but then I have my Nikes because you gotta keep it fresh.
And you told me that the skirt was your mother's?
Yeah, this is my mom's skirt. My mom has really good style. I steal all her clothes. Like sometimes, if I'm home and she goes out of town, I'm sad that she's out of town, but secretly I go and take her clothes. Don't put that in because she might see it.
Is she like, does she love what you're doing? Is she like...
Both my parents, they're so supportive. It's great. I have a very close family, so I love them very much.
How do you get into the business at 12? Can you explain it to me?
Sure. So I started singing when I could talk. I was always singing. And I always said I want to be a singer as far back as I could remember, since kindergarten, pre-kindergarten. I always said, I'm going to be a singer. It's funny because I remember in pre-kindergarten, I would say I want to be a singer, and every day, you know, you're young, your ideas change. One day my friends would be, I want to be a dancer. The next day, I want to be an actress. The next day, I want to be, I don't know. I would always say singer. It never changed. Always. And then I started doing some shows around my hometown. I was really, an expression anglais, on dit frothing at the bit. It means I was itching to get out and just sing. And so I started doing a lot of fundraisers and charities around Montreal, which is my hometown. And in the audience at one of the shows was André Menard, and he runs the Jazz Festival in Montreal, and it's one of the biggest festivals in the world. And it was my first show. It was in front of 125,000 people. I performed when I was 12 outside, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. It all kind of just lined up, and it happened very naturally and very organically. I wasn't ever forced. I never did any talent shows. I never did anything like that. It was more just I was singing and somebody heard me.
Got a different spice. I'm gonna serve it up real for you and make it nice.
Can you tell us how you met Quincy Jones?
I met Quincy when I was 14 through an ami commun, a mutual friend, and I sang for him. I got invited to go to his house and sing for him, and I sang for him, sang Summer Over the Rainbow and Lullaby Birdland, and he walked in his living room wearing a bathrobe with a smoothie, and was like, "What are you gonna sing for me?" He was so nice and so casual, you know. It was really, I don't know why I expected him to be like the Godfather or something, you know, and he's just so sweet and so down to earth, and it was really, really great to be able to meet him and sing with him. And then about a year later, I saw him in Rotterdam, because a year went by where we didn't do anything, and then I saw him in the Rotterdam Jazz Festival in my hotel. He was in the lobby, and I said, "Quincy," and he said, "Nikki, what are you doing this Friday?" I said, "Nothing," and he said, "Okay, you're going to come to Montreux and you're going to do the Jazz Festival with me there." And that was the first time I performed for him with an audience, you know, and the rest is history. We just started working together since then.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was fate. It was weird that he happened to be there at the same time. It all kind of lined up, you know.
Did you know who he was before you met him?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, even though I was only 14, I was singing all of his arrangements, you know, all his jazz standards, all his, like, Ella and Count Basie. It's one of my favorite albums. You know, Ella sings while Basie swings. It's, like, the best. And he did all the arrangements, and it's, like, mind-blowing to me. I mean, Frank Sinatra, you know, Sinatra at the Sands. I mean, of course, Michael Jackson. You know, I'm a huge fan of him also. And even, I think, meeting him, it was, like, surreal for me, because he was such a huge part of my musical influences. You know, he was a real idol of mine, so he still is.
What do you think he likes in you?
I think what Quincy sees in me is, well, he's told me, you know, he says that he thinks that hopefully I can decategorize music and bring jazz to a kind of a younger generation in a way. And he always just says that you can never be, your music can never be less or more than you are as a person. And I love that he says that. It's so true. And I mean, it just goes to show, like, all the things that he's done. He's one of the most important people in music ever. And he is exactly like that as a person. He's so sweet and so amazing that it just makes sense that that's like his life, you know? That's what he's done. It's amazing.
So you think that what we hear in an artist is what he is actually?
Only when it's real. But you can usually tell when it's real or when it's manufactured, you know? But that's something he says, you gotta be real.
Did you have the time to go to school?
Yeah, I finished high school. I was never homeschooled. I went to class like everybody else, but I had to travel a lot, so I missed a lot of class. But I went to a very supportive school, and they would give me my work on the road, and I would just do it when I was there, and yeah, and come back and do tests, and it was hard.
And was it okay with the people in the school?
Sometimes. I got bullied a lot from like grade 5 until grade 9, and like through elementary school to l'école secondaire, I had a tough time just with a couple of people. They weren't very nice, but you just ignore it and keep going, and eventually they go away.
Did you always have that confidence?
I don't know. You know what? It's hard to like think about it about yourself. I know that my parents, I have 2 older brothers, and the way they raised us is to always really believe in yourself, and you know, conviction is key. You have to have conviction, and just it's very important to think. My dad always says you can't be king unless you believe you can be king. So you really have to believe in yourself. But I think that I went through a time where I was uncomfortable a bit more. You know, everybody goes through that awkward phase. I had that for sure. I was much more awkward with people my own age because I was traveling so much with adults. You know, so sometimes when I'd come back, I'd feel like I'm weird with people who are my own age. And now I'm at a point where it's not really that I don't care, but I don't really care what people think about me. You have to really just be happy with yourself first.
Did you have boyfriend when you were younger? Did you feel the difference because
No, I never felt different like that. You know, I think that when you find somebody that's good for you, they like you for you and not for what you do, you know? But the thing is, I think it's very important to not to be too dependent on something. You know, if you want to have a happy life, you have to tie yourself to goals and not really to people. And it's like, that's kind of what I've done in a way. So I think that even if I wasn't singing, I'd find something else that made me happy. But right now I can't even think of that.
Give it what I got, that'll make you sing. How did you do that? How did you do that? Ooh, ooh, how did you do that? How did you do that? Yeah, yeah. How did you do that? How did you do that? Baby, got a little secret.